Off to Manchester United, right? Which, at the time, it must have been a kind of pinch yourself moment. But because of your success at Aberdeen, did you have any other options than Manchester United, or was it pretty straightforward?
Well, I turned down Arsenal, I turned down Wolverhampton Wanderers, and I turned down Tottenham.
Right, and the reasons for that?
Well, the reason is that Dick Donald said to me one day, he says, and I said to him, maybe it's time for me to leave and blah, blah, blah. He says, don't talk like that. He says, you've got a great setup here. You should only go to one club. And I says, who's that? He says, Man United.
There you are.
That's what Dick Donald says that to me.
It's amazing.
So I never budged till that came along.
And once it came along, pretty straightforward decision.
Absolutely. Oh no, it was couldn't get it quick enough.
And what was your initial thoughts, first couple of weeks moving into Manchester United?
Well, I would have to say there was a lot of trepidation about it. So travelling down that morning and the plane with Martin Edwards and the lawyer Maurice Watkins, I was asking a lot of questions and I wasn't getting all the answers.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. And we Gordon Strachan used to phone me quite a lot, and I didn't get a great picture out of that. You know what I mean? But so I knew that I knew all the players. I mean, they're world-class names in many ways. But I was determined to install what I believed at Aberdeen as someone, and that was to produce young players. I thought that was the best way to go. And plus the fact, I had all this evidence of Matt Busby. He was the greatest manager of that time. And what he did for Manchester United was amazing.
Well, you mentioned Dick Donald there, and it's a theme throughout, I think, your career, people that you look up to and are thankful for their help and guidance. And you mentioned Sir Matt, I imagine Martin Edwards, Sir Bobby Charlton as well were there.
Bobby Charlton, different class, wonderful man. Sir Matt was terrific, you know, that if I went to Old Trafford during the week, I could smell his pipe.
Yeah.
You know, and he'd be wafting up the stairs. And I got going from a cup of tea with him, and he was great. But Bobby Charlton was fantastic with me, honestly. He's wonderful. We used to go to the games together, and I said to him this day, I think the best Scottish team would have been the best English team. And he laughed. He says, how did you work that out? I says, well, Law and Douglas up front. And he says, what about Duncan Edwards? I said, oh, okay, we'll forget it. We've talked about it before. It's
funny, because we've done it as well. We pick our all-time British team, and I go, right, Law and Douglas, that's the forward sorted, right? But as I mean, it's a great, the arguments and discussions. But you won, I think the first trophy you won with the Cup, 1919. There's obviously a story, Mark Robbins scoring the goal and all that. So what do you remember about, I think it might have been your fourth season there, you won the Cup. Did that feel, not so much a weight off your back, but you know, it must have been, well, you used to winning things at this point, Aberdeen. That particular December, we went through the whole December, 8 games, never won a game. You know, and of course with the press play a part and all these things, I'm afraid that it's no nice to read it. And Matt always said, don't read the papers. Don't read the papers. And I did that in that particular time. So the Cup tie against Notts Forest was going to be huge, because Clough's teams were arguably one of the best Cup teams. Yeah. But the thing that won us that day, because we had a few injuries, the thing that won us that day was the fans. They were defiant. They were absolutely out of this world. And they were urging us on all the time. You couldn't help but smell the opportunity of it.
When you refer to psychology, you don't believe in psychology, it's management. Can you tell us what you mean by that?
Well, management psychology, I've never considered that as part of my job, but the management thing is based on, I believe anyway, in communication, loyalty and trust. When I went to Aberdeen, you have to give your trust to the players, and you hope by time you get it back. And I did exactly the same at United. But my communication was really important to me, recognise and value my staff. And I would never let anyone pass me in the corridor or in the dining room without saying good morning. I'd have a chat with them, whatever. I think that it's really important to, you know, for instance, if you think back to our time there when we won the league or a cup or whatever, I had all the staff in the dining room on a Monday. It was their cup. If you value them and you give your consideration to them, what the job they're doing, they'll pay you back.
How did you build a team? What was the ethos behind the team? Because you did. I mean, you kept me for 3 or 4 years at the end, and I wasn't doing particularly great for you.
Now, you made your own decision, but
I know. Even at the end, I had to say I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Because you weren't getting rid of me then.
No, I wasn't. I said that to you. Go away and think about it. Remember?
Yeah. No, I remember going seeing you and saying to you, "Boss, I'm done. I was making mistakes," and you said, "Typical emotional Neville." You said, "Go away, have a think about it." But even then, you wanted to have me to have another year.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, why did you keep these players who weren't necessarily performing for you like I wasn't at the end, or weren't the most talented, but they were winning? And how did you make them win? Because, obviously had great players as well, let's be clear, but you also had that core of people that weren't the most talented, but obviously believed maybe in yourself or the club.
I think through Eric Harrison, to myself, I think we brought up players where we developed a good mental strength, a toughness, that they could play in front of 75,000. I used to say that to the parents all the time. I said it to your mother and father. I hope Gary and Phil play in front of 75,000. That's the aim. Yeah. They don't all make it, but the amazing thing is a lot of those players are still playing today with different clubs. So that the preparation and education they got as they were built up in United was really important. Now, on the subject which you mentioned about great players and the hard-working players, this is something I thought about an awful lot with Brian Robson, Steve Bruce, and yourself. There's something inside them that drove them to be as good as the Scholes and the Giggs and the Cantonas and the Ronaldos and the Rooneys. There's something inside them that drives them on. It forces them to bring out everything they can put in a game. So therefore, I was fortunate to see that develop. Like Darren Fletcher was a great example. Steve Bruce was a great example. Yourself was a great example, right? Because you started as a centre-half, and we realised quickly that you weren't going to be a centre-half in our first team. So you developed yourself into right back. And that was your self-determination and having the fire inside you that made the Robsons and the Keanes and the Bruces all competitive players. It's the players who are so talented, like Cantona and Ronaldo and Giggs and Scholes and Carrick, and these talented players, even Dennis Sim would come in because they're a really talented player. That they have to show that they're prepared to be as hard working as you lads, as the other lads, and that's what gets the blend. And I think in most cases the teams we built had these ingredients. They didn't like losing. They were developed into that way. And I like to see myself in the players. And of course, when I lost a game, you know how I reacted. You know why? Because my expectation was bigger than theirs. I was going to win World Cups, win every game. That was my attitude every morning, every Saturday morning, to win every game.
When was the best time for you working under Sir Alex?
Listen, I think, all the time working under Sir Alex is a good time because you're always learning something. Listen, if you looked at every player in our squad, they would tell you they'd rather fall out with Sir Alex Ferguson. It was just a natural thing.
They'd had a fallout with him?
Of course they did, yeah.
Everybody did?
Everyone did. It was nothing new. It wasn't like... It's kind of different nowadays because I think players are a lot more fragile than what they were in our time. And we were strong personalities. But you always fell out of Sir Alex Ferguson because we had egos. And when you've got egos, they clash, whether it's a player on player, whether it's player on manager. And if the gaffer says something, Sir Alex Ferguson's last words were the last words you'll hear, and what he says at the end were right. But it didn't mean you agreed with him. So we're opinionated. So when you're opinionated, you're going to have clashes with managers or coaches. It was natural as that, but it was done and dusted. We had a game at Norwich, which was a big game, 92, 93 it was. And Norwich at the time were going for the title. Very, very good team they had at the time. And I think we won the game 3-1, 3-0, something like that. So it was about 5 minutes to go and I've got the ball and I've gone on a little mazy and I've lost the ball. They've gone up the pitch, nearly scored. Didn't think nothing of it. Just thought, So we get into the change room. All the lads are like patting each other on the back and saying well done and that, I'm joining in the fun, and then so Alex comes storming through the door like Rambo. You know, absolutely slaughter me, Shadow. You know, you're doing this. You're not Maradona. Give the ball past to the best players and all that stuff. And I'm thinking, you know, where's this come from? You know, and me being me, you know,
You bit back.
I bit back. It's, you know, I wasn't gonna, you know, it wasn't a case of letting them get away with it, but we just beat one of the total contenders comfortably at Carrow Road, and I've had a decent game, and we won 3-0, 3-1, and it was all about standards for him and doing the right things all the time and not coming away from it, and that shows what the greatness of the man. But me, being me as a character I was at the time, bit back, started having a shouting match.
You had to be restrained by 4 teammates, did you?
Oh, you must have been strong.
I thought it was 8, but obviously I'll take 4. I'll take 4.
Were you seriously having a go?
Yeah, I was having a go. Yeah, it was like one of, you know, a few times that I actually, because I don't think it's right. I personally, now looking back on it, I don't think it's right that a player should actually be confronting a manager, any manager. Don't care what ilk. I think it's not the right thing. But when emotions run high and you get accused of just one minor detail, and we've won the game, I had to go back, and you know, people came in, Sharpie, all that, Brian Kidd, and that was it. Got back on the coach. He didn't speak to me. I didn't speak to him. I think it was a Tuesday night. We played Norwich. So on the Thursday we come back in. So the lads who played on the Tuesday, we played head tennis. And as Robbo said to you, I like to win. So we got 5 either side. So Ferguson's the referee. I've not even spoke to Fergus for 48 hours now. Not said good morning to him or nothing. So
He's so stubborn.
So the game's going. It's first to 11. Gets to 10-10. Ball goes up in the air. Talking about overhead kicks. I did an overhead kick. Right in the corner of the court. Win the game 11-10. We're jumping about. Next minute, Alex Ferguson goes, ball was out. And I'm like, the ball wasn't out, Jim. It was in. But because I wasn't speaking to him, I couldn't say anything, and I was just bubbling underneath. Because we hadn't spoken 48 hours, I couldn't contest the decision. So he goes, winners, them. So I'm walking away, and then all of a sudden he goes, see, and I turned around and he went, only one governor here, son. And he started to laugh, and then after that we were speaking again.
And that was it?
And that was it. That's the greatness of the man.
I mean, that was phenomenal, because it was feisty in that Norwich dressing room, was it not? I mean, he was saying, you got to look up when you're on a run. That's what he was annoyed about. You apparently said, well, if I'm that bad, why don't you sell me? You, and then a shocking word, Mr. Inns. But, and he said, you don't have the bottle to sell me, you said to Sir Alex. And no doubt.
You'd say that.
No doubt that's what caused the feistiness between the two of you, the friction.
No, listen, no. I think Sir Alex Ferguson really could have dealt with it in a way. We've just won the game. There was no need to come in and upset the atmosphere that was being generated in the changing room.
When either the youth team played Manchester City or Liverpool, or whether the reserve team were playing Manchester City or Liverpool, you were offended by... It felt to me like you were offended by the club being beaten by Liverpool or City at any level, and it made you angry. And the build-up to those games... your face was more a little bit like it is now. Was it a dislike of you? Was it the rivalry? What was it that made you feel that way? Because it was just different in the club.
It's my respect to Liverpool. When I was the manager at St Mirren, I went down to Liverpool's training for a week, and I saw the intensity of their training and the consistency they had. So when I came to United and they were winning all the titles, I made that point. And it's like, when I was at Aberdeen, there's only 2 clubs you need to beat in Scotland to win everything. That's Rangers and Celtic. At that time when I came to United, there's only 1 club to beat to win the league, and that's Liverpool. So that was my intention. That was what I put everything into producing a team who could beat them. Not necessarily beat them every game, but win the leagues. And if you remember, I always said to the players at Liverpool, if you don't turn up, we're going to be beaten. And we'll go there with our best team, with Keane and Scholes and Giggs and Beckham and the back 4 tonight, the front players. And sometimes, if we're just off a little bit, we lost. You know, we had a great record there in terms of any other club, but nonetheless, I knew that if you beat Liverpool, you're on the right path. You're down 1-0 with 15 minutes to go. What's the point in sitting with your back four, your regular midfield, and 2 strikers? What's the point in it? The risk is shove people in the box because the other team react to that. You shove 3 and 4 in the box, get the ball in there. That's the risk because you can lose the breakaway, the counter-attack quite easily. And we lost games that way. I remember, I think it was Newcastle, Ole Gruner got sent off with bringing the player down the last kick of the ball. But the value is you score in the last minute or injury time. Remember the dressing room? It was electric. Absolute electric. The fans are going home. They can't wait to get to the pub to talk about. They can't wait to go home and tell their wife and their kids what it was like at Old Trafford to score in the last minute. That's the value. And if you're playing for our club, that risk should always be there. There's no point in flapping about in the midfield with a few passes and no taking the risk of getting the ball in the box. Because you're not going to score for 40 yards. I can't remember a player trying to score for 40 yards.